Welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast, bringing you authentic and vulnerable stories that will inspire you to breathe fire on this world and become your own hero. Here's your host, Blaise Hunter.
Hello, welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast. I'm Blaise Hunter, and I am a fertility expert. No, I don't help people get pregnant. This is a different type of expertise. I actually inspire people to birth confidence and self-worth, to birth their books and business ideas, dreams, passions, and goals, as well as help them discover peace amongst infertility. After going through my own sets of traumas and tragedies, dealing with a rare disease, and experiencing 3 miscarriages, I decided to take charge of my life and not let life happen to me, but rather become the hero of my own life. I am not barren. I continually birth my purpose every day. So that's why I've created this show, to demonstrate how even though we all experience setbacks and disappointments, we still have a destiny to birth. We just need to blaze the trail and be expecting. This podcast will inspire you to lean into your hardships and allow them to be the vehicle that transports you into becoming the hero of your life, so you can breathe fire on this world. This week's episode is called Processing Infertility. And some points we'll cover are why it's important to address the traumas, how breaking the silence barriers on this topic helps in the healing journey, and how to be fertile amongst infertility. And I have my friend here, Natascha Hebell-Fernando, to speak on this topic. Dr. Hebell-Fernando, PhD, began her education with extensive study in molecular biology before receiving an MBA from Clemson University. During her work as a DNA researcher, she observed the very real need for uncovering the root cause of illness and working with the body's wisdom to promote healing. This observation became the foundation for her love of healing modalities found in Reiki, functional nutrition, and East Asian medicine. She's a Reiki master and a biogenetic practitioner. As a highly sensitive person, she struggled firsthand with the aggressive and one-size-fits-all approaches, even in the alternative healing world. And she focuses on offering her clients a safe and gentle space for restoration and healing. A lifelong learner, she completed her integrative medicine doctor and doctor of humanitarian services from the World Organization of Natural Medicine. She's also a licensed acupuncturist and holistic health practitioner in the state of Arizona. She shares her insight and guidance virtually with clients worldwide. In particular, she helps women cope with the challenges of infertility, loss, failed fertility treatments, and childlessness. It is her mission to raise awareness of the physical, emotional, and financial exhaustion that women and couples experience on their infertility journey. There is no soft place to land once these treatments fail. She offers a message of hope to inspire women to find their soul purpose in life and regain their self-confidence, self-worth, and purpose. Welcome, Natascha, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I think that's been the most energetic introduction I've ever had, so thank you.
Oh, well, you know what? It's exciting to have someone that has a similar interest in helping people along the infertility line. So it's a pleasure to have you on today to have this in-depth conversation about a very real topic that's not at the front lines of everyday conversation, don't you think?
Definitely not. It's, it can be such a lonely journey. You can feel so isolated, and it's not just the grief and loss that we're dealing with, but also a lot of misconceptions and not being understood. You're right.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, both of our mission statements is to basically blaze the trail through, uncharted territories of this topic, of the mental health aspect, the emotional health, and help people regain some control of their life and be fertile, even if it's not birthing a physical baby, hey?
Exactly. And I talk about, procreation. I call it procreation is not just the children, it's the children of our thoughts, of our ideas, of our concepts. And that's what lives on. And so we have to be really creative because, the regular way, so to say, is like you leave a legacy, you leave some DNA in this world, and then this kind of perpetuates itself, right? But if that doesn't happen, we really have to become more creative and rethink what is our purpose in this life, in that legacy sense.
Absolutely. And redefining what those mean for each of our journeys. And it's different for one of us. And that's the, magical part of it is being, creative, birthing things that are unique to each one's journey.
Exactly.
Awesome. So maybe tell me a little bit more of your infertility journey and how you ended up becoming a mentor and coach and really working on this topic for your purpose.
Yep, it has been a long road. So for me, it's I started out. You said I'm more on the scientific side of things. I got married, and we wanted to have kids right away. And this was, so I'm a little bit older. So I married actually 25 years this year. And so at the time, they're like, oh, well, after 2 years, you go to the doctor. And then we went to a reproductive endocrinologist, and we did some tests. Everything looked perfect. Everything was fine. But then, eventually we discovered that I had endometriosis. We weren't compatible chemically, my husband and I. And to me, that was like a total shock. My husband and I, we were like from opposite sides of the world. I'm originally from Germany. He's from the Philippines. We met in Italy. We ended up in the States. So it was just really something that was just a shock to me, that like, what, you're telling me we can't have children? I had, my period was regular, I didn't even know I had endometriosis at the time. And so it was just like a real shock that I never really realized it was a shock. But then what kept on happening is like, we were like, oh, we'll just try. We did some infertility treatments, but I really did not react well to the injections, the drugs. I just felt horrible. We decided, you know what, we'll just do what we can, right? Relax, do our thing. And what happened is the time went on, and every month I felt, another month went by, another disappointment, and my husband couldn't really relate to it. He's like, I love you no matter what, and yeah, we do miss not having children, but we kind of like didn't deal with it, And so what happened is that we just really focused on our careers. We traveled, we kind of tried to make the best out of it. But there were so many moments, especially when I look back, where I was just really depressed and sad. I mean, going to just yet another baby shower, or, a birthday of our niece or nephews. As much as I loved them, it was so difficult for me. And I didn't really understand why that was, because there was nobody else I could talk to. And so I really became very involved in my work, my career. And then I had this moment when I thought, I was in my early 40s. I'm like, well, why am I even getting up in the morning? Like, she said, what's my purpose? It's like, who am I working for? It's just like us, and that's it. So I had a little bit of a midlife crisis. I decided to go back to school and become actually an acupuncturist. That's how I discovered acupuncture during infertility. I was hoping it would help us. It didn't. And I actually hated needles, but I felt really great after the acupuncture. So I decided to go more into integrative medicine world, because that kind of really made sense to me, even with what I had discovered before. It's like, okay, the body's not really just like a machine. There's really a lot more to it. And so I was really into, running my acupuncture clinic. I was super successful, very busy, helped a ton of people. But I knew something was not right, because I would just refuse to see women that wanted to get pregnant. Like, I would not do infertility stuff or expectant mothers. I'm like, I referred them out all the time. It's like, I just can't deal with it. It's still too painful for me. But then what happened over time is I really burned out. I worked super hard, and I had to basically take a sabbatical. And I really spent a lot of time in self-reflection. Like, why did I do this to myself? I had such a successful practice. Basically had to sell my space, and I really had to reduce the number of people I was seeing. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I had like no idea. This whole time I had been struggling with my own infertility story. But what happened is that somebody's Facebook group, whatever, they talked about your soul story. And like, what's your soul story? And I'm like, well, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And I just sat there, and all of a sudden it came to me, oh my God, that moment when we went to the reproductive endocrinologist and they told us we're not compatible. And I remember, like, I was never the same after that. It's like I just felt like a different person. I could remember everything about that day. And I remember all these moments when, I thought, oh, I'm late a few days, maybe this is the time I'm pregnant. And then when I get my period, and, all these times I would like have maybe a presentation at work or, an event or something. And like moments before I discover, oh, I do have my period, and not being able to do what I really wanted to do, which was to like crying, be under a blanket. But no, I had to put up, a smiley face and move forward. And so I really had to work through that grief. It took me quite some time, and it was so deep. There was so much anger, frustration, everything coming up. And I'm like, wow, this was really at the root cause of a lot of my own mental, emotional, but also physical problems, because I had never really processed that. And then what happened next was, so after I worked through that, I actually was still seeing a few patients. And then during the same 2 weeks, I had 2 patients. So I would have actually women that would have their IVF transfer done. So I would just do the acupuncture before and after, because it can be really helpful. But then I would always tell them, once you're pregnant, that's it. You're going to go to my colleague. I don't do pregnant women. So both of them came in and they said, oh my gosh, this is our last chance at getting pregnant. And they were crying. They felt guilty for not giving their husband a child, for their mom seeing her like suffer. My mom suffers because, she doesn't have grandchildren, and feeling bad that they were just like failing everybody else around them. Yet they were the ones that had gone to all these infertility treatments with I don't know how many shots, going through all the hormonal ups and downs. And they were the ones like feeling guilty and upset and not enough. And I was just like, wait a minute, if I could see what I can see, that these are women that have so much potential and light. And yes, of course, we all, if we want to have children, that's the one thing we really want. But I was like, no, I have to speak up, and that's how I started to work more and more with women that have experienced what I've experienced, which is like, you're at such a loss, not having something that is so like natural to everybody else, and just really help them work through the trauma, the grief, but really help them realize all the different possibilities and opportunities that are available to them.
Oh, that's a wonderful story of just, leaning into your own pain and your own disappointments and struggles and turning it around. And I really honor that with you, and honor your vulnerability to speak about it today, because I think that's really one of the hardest points for women and men, is actually talking about it and being very raw and real of the process that you've been through, because it is different for each of us, but it is having that same kind of underlying theme of disappointment and lack of control. And that was with me, my pinnacle moment of realizing I had no control of this. And what is this root cause? What is causing all of this chaos for me and disappointment? And I also battle a rare autoimmune disease where, it's very prevalent and linked to attacking yourself. Your body's attacking yourself. And I always attacked myself. I felt like I wasn't a true woman because I couldn't do what a woman should be able to do. And that was the pinnacle moment of me realizing I didn't process a lot of things, and I needed to work through some of those emotional things to get to the root cause and help me at least heal emotionally and mentally. Maybe I couldn't actually physically birth another baby, but I could heal and get to the root cause of what was some contributing factors to my infertility. And so did you have a pinnacle moment where you realized you hadn't processed, or was it kind of just a natural progression journey? And why is it so important for us?
Well, it was for me. I think I had just pushed this away because it wasn't a real grief. It wasn't a real pain. I mean, I don't have anything to show for it, right? It's just like, oh, well, you don't have children, so, just move on from there kind of thing, right? How can people that have not gone through this relate to what I'm talking about? And there was really nobody to talk about it. At the time, in the early 2000s, there wasn't really Facebook or a community, online community where you could share that a little bit more. So for me, the pivotal moment was when I realized, so I'm, in my mid-50s I stopped having my periods just a year or two ago, when there came this moment, oh my gosh, like, this is really it. I really will not have children. and how I felt like, oh my gosh, this is like this sinking abyss feeling, and even being triggered sometimes by, seeing little girls or the outfits in Target, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how would our kids have looked like? Or even seeing sometimes the expression in my husband when he plays with one of our nephews and nieces. I mean, that heartache, it's like, oh my gosh, this is still so raw. But really, the moment was when somebody told me, what is your soul story? And where this moment was so vivid that, oh my God, I really never dealt with that. I just always pushed it away because I thought it wasn't real. Like I should just count my blessings and just move on. I really had to sit with it. And like I said, it was a pretty raw, deep process for me to go to the grief and so much anger and frustration. And like you said, there's this loss of control. And I realized that I had just really lost the trust in my body, trust in life in general. A lot of my self-worth self-confidence was kind of gone, like a lot of self-sabotaging, behaviors. I could, all of this, it was somehow all linked to that infertility journey for me.
Oh, I can totally relate. And that self-sabotage and that self-blame and the shame. And
shame, yes.
So much shame. We take it on as women as it's our fault. And,
yes.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to work through because logically in your head, you can say, yes, not my fault. Yes, this happened. And I can blame this and this. But at the end of the day, women are wired to take it on and say, if I don't have a specific reason, then it must be me. Or if it is my body and my health and whatever going on inside, then it is me. And we take it on. And, I wrote my book to help me heal. And so many other women who have read the book and have gone through infertility or loss, they say, you know what, I'm in my 40s or I'm in my 50s or 60s even. And I had a loss when they were 20 and they were like, I never processed the grief. I never processed it. I just swept it under the rug and went on with my life because women are doers. We know how to do that. We know how to push through and just continue on life. But when we bury it, the other things, present. Other things bubble up to the surface when we never fully deal with or certain traumas or tragedies. So it is so vital, I know from your perspective and mine, to deal with it. It's part of the healing journey. It's the key thing in healing. Don't you agree?
I totally agree. Because one is we can just, like I said, put it under the rug and or put it away very neatly in a little box in our body, right? But it will surface sooner or later. And you're right, there are women in their 70s and 80s who still feel it because it will never go away. Because I think, and you would agree with that the grief is much better and we'll be fine, let's say 95% of the time. But for 5% of the time, we still grieve, but we know how to deal with it. We understand, okay, I went to this, okay, this is what it is, and I'm okay, this is just how it is. There's other things I do in my life, and I can move on from that. And it's so important to address this because I think we can get stuck in bitterness, we can get stuck in the grief and the feeling of loss, and we never realize our own potential. I think it's a great opportunity to overcome a huge challenge. And when we do, we come out so much stronger, so much more empowered, and just so much wiser because we have an emotional depth, an emotional understanding of like the human condition that a lot of other people just don't have.
I totally agree. And, the more and more we can speak about it and encourage that, hopefully will pave the way for women to feel safe to speak about it, for men to feel safe. It's not danger. Vulnerability is safe. Risk is safe, but you have to take that leap of faith and start exposing that part of you that you've hidden below the surface for so long to help yourself move forward and heal truly from the root, from, the depths of where that started, the core of that issue of grief and loss and unfulfillment and miscarried dreams, and allow yourself to heal and move forward as the best version of yourself, because that's part of human life, is to heal and move forward, to grow, to allow ourselves to feel the different things and the hard things of life, but to still live a fulfilled life, don't you think?
Exactly. And, one of the things that I learned that gave me a different perspective was, as a practitioner, if I don't know if you've ever had acupuncture or your listeners, but it's a very intimate space. It's a sacred space that's created between the acupuncturist and the person. And so people are very, very vulnerable. And so I have seen so many people, and what I most remember are those moments of vulnerability where I actually also learned from people that were older, men and women, how much they suffered because of their children. Not so much because they didn't have children, but because maybe they had an argument with their child and now they no longer talk to each other, or a child or grandchild was killed in an accident, or they're in drugs, they're in jail. I mean, I know it sounds kind of trivial, but we all have our hardships. We all have our heartaches. It's just that, like, the loss associated with infertility and miscarriages, it's just not understood. It's not something that people can easily relate to. But I think it is changing because so many of us are speaking up. And so I think that, my hope is that in the future, yes, women will be looked at as mothers, but you will see yourself as so much more, that you won't feel guilty, like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have had maybe that big venti Starbucks when, before I had a miscarriage or something like that, because we tend to think that way, right? That we still have that shame and guilt associated with it. I think it's really time to leave that behind, because we are all so much more than just, under quotation marks, a mother, even though that's what we really want.
Yes, I'm glad you're bringing that up. Infertility and loss are becoming common. And, we're just seeing more and more of it because we are talking about it more and more, I think, and we have more portals to express, this area that we haven't really addressed, even 50 years ago. But it is still a taboo topic. How are you breaking the silence barriers, and how do you think getting loud about this helps in that processing and healing part?
Yeah, first of all, me starting to talk about it has been very healing for me. And just because I've become a lot more articulate in what has been going on in my own life, but then also finding kind of like a kinship with so many other men and women, actually. But I have to say, it's still so taboo. I mean, my husband, he knows I'm talking about it a lot more, but he's not quite comfortable with it, and he doesn't really talk about it. And so even for my own family and friends, I think they're just kind of looking at me like she's like really strange. And they haven't really gotten it, and I have to say, though, that being more open about it has allowed me to heal, in a sense, because there was one particular incident I remember, and it was a long time ago. We had like a barbecue out with friends and family, and there was this one person who said, well, how come you guys aren't pregnant yet? And we said, well, we've been trying, whatever. So what's there to it? Just do it. It's so simple. And people were just laughing around us, and I just wanted to cry because I felt so hurt. And that particular person actually came to visit us just a few weeks ago. So this is about 20 years ago in between. And I can still remember like who was sitting at the table and how everybody was laughing and how embarrassed and ashamed I felt. And I thought, well, let's see how can I deal with that person being back, so close, right? And you know what? I was okay with it. I was like able to forgive that person. She just didn't know any better. And we were able to talk, my husband and I, because we have 2 children now, we were able to talk openly about our struggles and how our lives are. And they told us more about how difficult it was with their children and whatnot. And so it was such a healing kind of circle because we were able to share just openly about each other's challenges. And they were very different, but yet very similar at the same time.
I appreciate all what you're saying. It's so true. Like just being very open about it, but it takes very being reflective, introspective, and working through that in order to own your truth and be very open about it. Because for so long, I totally know people would ask me, how come you don't have your second kid? You should be working on that. You're getting older. What's the problem? And, for the longest time, I would make up jokes and I would deflect. And until I got to a point where I'm like, I'm just going to unmask that side of me and be very real, people then responded to that. And I'm educating them too. Like, it's not right to be asking those very personal questions and re-traumatizing someone. So we're educating people how to be empathetic, how to approach topics, how to talk about someone's passions and interests. And then eventually you learn they don't have children or they've been struggling. Don't come out and attack them with that question, because it's very traumatizing. And part of us talking about these taboo topics is educating people and helping bridge that gap and have empathy be at the forefront rather than just battering people with questions, right?
Yes, exactly. And I was recently on a podcast, and the host is a woman. She's probably in her 60s or 70s, and we were talking about because their podcast is more about general wellness for women over 50. But so we started talking about the infertility, and she said, you have to come back here on my show. So she said, because my daughter-in-law, I asked her, well, where are the grandkids? And I was just asking jokingly, and she got really mad at me. And I said, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that. But I didn't know what else to say. So we're going to do a whole episode about the triggers and what to say, because people just don't know. And I think when we're in that situation, we don't have the emotional fortitude to educate people, because it's just so wrong. We're hurting so much that, we kind of have to educate on the other side first, because when we're deep in it, nobody can ask us to do a long explanation, because we're just going to start crying, right? So it's just really interesting that people just don't really know what to do about it. That's just the way they connect, is to the children, to the stories of the children. And they just don't realize that for some people, that's a really, really hurtful comment or a really painful spot.
Absolutely. You're so bang on there about, it's just bridging the gap. I know that people don't mean harm. It's just that bringing that topic to the forefront and having these dialogues to educate people and say, hey, looking at it from a different angle. I know you probably have never felt this kind of pain, but this is what I'm feeling, and how can we work together to inject more empathy? And, there came a point after my second miscarriage where I was low. I was full of shame and wasn't talking about it. I blamed myself for losing my babies, and I was at this crossroads. Do I sink lower, or how do I gain some control back in my life? How do I not let life happen to me, but rather become the driver of my life? And so I ended up writing through my pain, writing this book, Heroine, and creating my business, creating Footprints in Fertility and Pregnancy Loss Support Group, which I made our babies count. I gave a voice to myself and to grieving parents, and that was the key to my healing. And I look at your story, and you did the same thing, just in a different way, but you turned your pain into your purpose. And so how do you help people now deal with their pain and infertility, loss, and childlessness?
Well, I created a kind of like an online sanctuary. I call it the Golden Sanctuary. So it's actually the website, thegoldensanctuary.com. So this is kind of like the entry portal where I invite women to join my private Facebook group, where I do some mini trainings. Sometimes I do some virtual Reiki sessions, just a kind of very relaxed healing space. And then I work with women one-on-one to just kind of work them through my different method and how to look at the different facets of life, gain an understanding and acceptance of how to find kind of like your alignment, your inner voice, how to be able to take care of yourself better, how to love yourself again, and how to get over that shame and guilt and really find, be your own best advocate and feel more empowered and really expand into your life and have a fearless future.
Oh, that's so amazing. It's so great to hear how you've turned it around, because, I'm sure with you seeing all these people, and same with me, that are going through these same type of struggles, you look into their eyes and they just say, I just want to be a mom. That's all I ever wanted to be, was to be a mother.
Yes.
And I think what I'm doing here in Canada and you doing in the States, I think it's wonderful that we are going out and turning our pain into our purpose and showing by our own lives that we can still be fertile. We can still pick up our miscarried dreams and birth something and leave a lasting legacy. It may not be a physical baby, but we're turning it around. We're mothers of purpose. And so I love that what you're doing with your work, and that's what I want to show in this show, in my episodes and in my life, is that we can still be fertile. And like you said, be productive. Look at creating life, or anything, just creating in a different light. And I think that's really the driver of your work, don't you think?
Exactly. Yes. I mean, we're doing exactly the same work because we have experienced similar things, and we see the potential in ourselves and in every other person around us. And I think I hear it. I just want to be a mom. I know I have been there. And just moving beyond that, it is so powerful, because such a powerful message for, I think, your soul purpose, because we're here on this earth for, some kind of purpose. And maybe that was just they call it like a soul contract, to just not have physical children, to figure out something else and how we can make this world a better place.
Yes. And we are mothers. We are, mothers of dreams, fathers of destiny. And when you feel like you aren't being the mother that you wanted and dreamed to be, then go nurture something. Go nurture somebody, nurture love, inject love, and be of service, and you'll find purpose in that. And you'll begin to take a step of finding out what your soul journey is and what your soul purpose is by being of service. So that's like my biggest tip to people. And maybe you can offer a tip that with your work is like, what's one step somebody can do today if they're listening today and going through that journey of infertility or loss or childlessness? What is a tip that you can give them?
I always like to keep it simple when you're going through these really difficult steps. I would say try to find some time in nature and just be grounded. Just realize that there's so much magnificence and awesomeness around you, and you're part of it. And just being able to reconnect with your deepest self, I think that's the most important thing. So if you just go out in nature, maybe do some earthing, take off your shoes, feel the grass under your feet, or go somewhere where it's like really nobody around you, just scream if that's what you need to do. But just get some sunshine or nature, something that reconnects you to your true core.
I love that. That's great advice. And I know that doesn't solve the problems, but it does, like you said, helps reconnect yourself back to who you are, in the core of who you are, and that will lead you to taking that step forward. So this is awesome. I'm so excited to speak with you. We could talk all day because we have so much in common, and we're on the same type of journey of helping people be fertile. So if people are interested in learning more about you, what you do, and want to work with you, how can they connect with you?
But the best way is to just check out the Golden Sanctuary, my website, and you can call me or always connect with me one-on-one. I love to talk to people all over the world. I'm always available for a 15-minute chat if you just want to connect or get some ideas. And then my Facebook group. The Facebook group can be found Beyond Infertility and Childless Not by Choice. And I always welcome members there. They all have to go through a little process to answer a few questions, just make sure it's a good fit. And that's just the best way to get in touch with me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your heart with me and your vulnerability and really sharing this infertility message and being fertile. So thank you so much, Natascha.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Perfect. Let's recap what we talked about today, redefining what your legacy is and leaving a DNA footprint by birthing your purpose, addressing the grief, the loss of control, the loss of a dream, the barrenness is key to our healing process. Vulnerability is safe. We can be productive and still create. It just looks differently. And how to connect back to your core to step into your soul's journey. This has been a beautiful topic and something that's near and dear to my heart. So if you want to learn more about my consulting programs, purchase my book or to have me speak at your next event, please visit blaisehunter.com. I do have a free offer for everyone. When we feel lost, when we're driving, what do? We Google Maps that stuff, right? We go to the map. So when we're feeling lost and out of control in the maze of life and feel anxiety and overwhelm, we need to go to the map. I have a MAPP map designed for us to get back to peace and balance in the day. It's a quick 10-minute video to get yourself back through the maze of life and get you back to being the hero of your life. So go to the free offers tab on blaisehunter.com. That is a free gift for my audience today. Thanks so much for Natascha coming on. Challenge yourself to be vulnerable, lean into the difficulties, and have those open conversations so we can rise up as the heroes of our lives and let us breathe fire together. If you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe and support Blaise the Trail podcast. Reviews are always welcome and very much appreciated. Thanks for listening. I'm Blaise Hunter.
You've been listening to Blaise the Trail with Blaise Hunter. To learn more about how you can breathe fire and unleash the hero within, or to listen to past episodes, visit blaisehunter.com.